Hey everyone, and welcome to the Freedom Life Collab. This podcast is made up of unique voices and real conversations about leading, laughing, loving, and living freely. We are so glad that you could join us, and our hope is that we can help you experience freedom. So let's hear about today's topic.
All right, welcome back, y'all. We've got Keisha St. Clair.
What's up, guys?
So Keisha is going to be joining us for the next 2 episodes, and then we got my man actually for an encore experience.
Come on,
Tim McCain,
excited.
hanging out with us, and good old Pastor Kyle.
Yeah, man, excited to be here.
He's going to just John B.
The whole time, sound effects and all. I'm just here for comedic. That's it. Just comedic review, comedic condition. That's it. No,
That's
I'm
it.
excited.
And I'm James. I think we're going to have a good time today. I wanted to start this episode off a little bit. We are in a season as a church, but also as a society. Like while we're recording this, it's about Thanksgiving season.
Yep.
And so Keisha has this really cool thing that she's a part of, that she started. And so I really want this episode for people to hear the vision of what you've been involved in for the last year, and also really to give people some hope who are kind of experiencing some dreams, because that's what we've been talking about as a church. We just got out of a series called Make It Count, talking about discovering God's dream for your life. And as we thought about that series, you were one of those names that kept, kind of coming up. Like, how do you pursue God's dream? What is it? How do we do it? And so, Keisha, why don't you just jump in, tell us a little bit about yourself, but also tell us about that thing that you are jumping in.
Yeah.
Awesome. Cool. So, Keisha, that would be me. So I guess a little bit about Ezer. Ezer started, officially came to fruition in June of 2018. And it was just the direct result of a burden that the Lord had put on my heart for the least, the last, and the lost. And I was able to relate to a ton of those things and walk through lots of experiences that kind of just culminated into a posture shift for me. So I guess about 4 years ago, I applied for the pastoral internship at Freedom Life Church, and I got to walk
4
through
years
that.
already?
Man.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Wow. It's a journey.
4 years.
4 years.
Come on.
Yeah.
And like just even leading up to that, I had spent a ton of years just in the street, you know what I mean? Just doing tons of research to prepare me for Ezer.
I love that. I love that.
Research your dream.
I'm gonna start using that. Yeah,
Me too.
My former life was research.
Yeah, no, I got it. It's perfect.
Look,
It's
and when you
perfect.
fall back, it's like, oh, you had to do some more research.
I used to
That's
say,
funny,
yeah.
that's funny.
I used to say I was off away to school,
That's it.
but I like
Learning,
research.
learning.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I just one day I was fresh off a mission trip, and there was like this whole crazy thing. Supposed to be a hurricane. Tree fell in my house. Found out my oldest daughter was pregnant. Her senior year of high school.
Okay, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And it was like all the things that could happen happened, and I just didn't realize that it was like the enemy coming for me right before I realized what God's plans and His purpose were for my life. So from that place forward, I just walked into the internship, and we'll probably talk more about that, a little later on. But walking into the internship and beginning to learn what it was like to really lean into a relationship with God, and what it looked like to let Him lead, right? And so I just began serving in tons of areas and learning some just hard-won experience and what it was like to do ministry, from, cleaning toilets to moving chairs to, leading small groups to preaching in youth ministry. And then I really started to experience a ton of opportunity to encounter people that were going through some serious struggles in their life. And so my heart began to just ache for them. And it was a progressive thing. Like it just began to break over and over again. I remember we had a specific person that started coming to church, and we had already shifted over to 2200, and Pastor Kyle and I were working together a lot then, and he's like, man, we need a ministry for this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like he hit my phone like, Keisha, we need a ministry for this. Yeah. And so it was like, okay, I don't know what that looks like, but I'll lean in and see what God wants to do, right? You remember that?
Yeah, that's crazy.
So that's that kind of was a shifting point. Like, okay, there is a ministry for something like this. So I kind of leaned in, and I didn't know what it looked like. And then we had a guy that came to the church on a Saturday night. And I'm so blessed to be able to say that he still texts me today to check on me.
That's awesome.
Right?
Wow.
Anyway, but he came to the church and he shared with someone that he had not eaten since Saturday. Or since Thursday, sorry, this was Saturday.
Okay.
And the response that he got was, well, there's a food pantry here on Wednesday.
Yeah.
And I was undone. I think oftentimes we, get into the groove of what we're doing and what we're not doing, and we're so overly cautious about not enabling people, right? Or not knowing their story and not wanting them to, we want to be good stewards of the resources that we have. So, we kind of have our standard responses and lean on the partnerships that we have. Yeah, we got a food pantry, man. Hit it up on Wednesday. You'll be good.
Right. Yeah.
But it's Saturday. And so I was like, whoa. What happens when people have a need after hours, Monday through Friday, 9 to 5?
Yeah.
Who jumps in there? Like, who do they call if they're in crisis and they just need a meal or they just need somewhere to stay? The winter shelters aren't open. What does that look like? And so that night, it just continued. People jumped in, man. People jumped in and went and got him food and bought him a tent and like all these things. It was awesome, right? Just to see people come together.
Right.
But at the same time, there were people that were saying some things that just rocked me.
Wow.
And
What do you mean?
so, for example, there was someone that had a key to the food pantry, and they said, man, let's not wait till Wednesday. I'm going to go ahead and just grab some things out of the closet now. Her key didn't work in the door. And a gentleman was strolling past, and, I really think, I know his heart, so I don't think this was his heart. I really think these were all just things that propelled me into receiving God's plan for my life. So I don't want anybody to hear what I'm not saying,
course,
right? But he said, man, the key's not working. It must not be God's will for him to eat today.
Wow.
And I was undone.
Wow. That was the first response.
Yeah.
That came out of, wow.
And I was like, whoa. So I actually grabbed Shaw, right? Adam Bradshaw, he's, he does some things for us around here.
Yeah. Big guy. Yeah. That's the man.
I grabbed him. I was like, listen, I need you to go in there and be Jesus right now.
Right.
Because I can't. If I walk in there, I'm punching somebody in the face. I'm just like,
research.
I'm about to get put out. I'm about to get put out the internship. I'm about to get banned from 2200.
Right.
I can't do it.
Yeah.
And God does that. He places people right there that are able to hold your arms up.
So circle back for a second. You mentioned a few things that you feel like you were undone. You said that a few times.
Yeah,
Just
kept in there.
undone,
Yeah.
undone. What is that? Like, tell me
literally
more
wrote that
about
down,
what that is.
Because that's a good. Just to jump on that question too, I kept hearing you. You just kept talking about in a number of different ways this burden that you had, and most people were just like, oh, maybe it's not God's will, or we'll go and help in this way. But you seem like you had that undone. Like, where did that? I was going to ask the same question. Where did that come from? Like, why you? Why did you feel like this is the thing that and no one else is doing that? It's huge.
Yeah, I think being undone is directly correlated to the heart and the calling that God has for you. I think that.
That's good. Let me retweet. I'm just kidding. That's good.
And that's actually where I was headed. Just what I realized, because I just knew I was being broken for this thing, but I didn't realize what it meant.
That's good.
And so I'm like, by the time I grabbed Shaw and asked him to jump in there, I was in the hallway cussing and crying, like, I can't.
Yeah.
I can't with church anymore. If this is what church folks do, I can't. Mind you, I've been in an internship under the most amazing leadership team that I could ever have the opportunity to be under. And at this point, I hated all of y'all. I was like, no, I don't like none of them.
Right.
I got to go.
Right.
And I left that night not knowing if I was ever coming back to Freedom Life Church.
Wow.
And I'm fortunate that the Lord had set me up for success, right? There was someone that was able to receive me when I got home. That I was able to go through all of the cussing and all of the screaming and all of the crying and calling some of y'all out y'all names. And I'm just being honest,
Right.
And she listened to me, and she said, "Are you done yet?" And I'm like, crap, no. That's not what I said. But, censoring it for this.
Right.
And so I continued with my rant, and then, there was just a spirit of settling. And she looked at me and she said, "Let me ask you a question. Are you going to spend all your time being bitter and holding on to resentment because God didn't give them the heart and the calling that he gave you?"
That's a huge statement. Yeah, that's huge.
So I did that, like that whole Carrie Pollock thing. What?
Yeah.
And she said it again. She said, "Do you know this leadership team?" "Yes." "Are they anointed?" "Yes." "Are they operating in their gifts?" "Yes." "Are they spirit-led?" "Absolutely." And God had allowed me to be a part of that for years, so I could know that in complete confidence. And she said, "Don't you think that if he would have burdened their heart or called them to it, they would be doing it?"
So Keisha, let me interrupt, and maybe this is extremely sarcastic. So what you're telling me is that when you have a dream or a vision for something, that not everybody else is going to have the same burden or vision for something.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's good.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Each of us is uniquely equipped, I think, based on our life experiences, the relationships that we've had or not had, to develop that heart,
Yeah.
to begin to cultivate whatever that burning desire is going to be that propels us into the plans and purpose for our life.
Yeah.
You know, it's cool. Like
love it.
you said something, I think, and I don't know if we like the stories after the fact, but I don't know if we really kind of stop for a second and camp out on how this all happened. So just quickly, based on your story, you now have this passion and you have this burden to do these things, and God has shown you his calling. But we look at the story and how it all unfolded. You know, those things, while they weren't good in the moment, somebody saying something like that, and then you're not being able to get in there, and then not having a direct answer, or even the leadership team not having a direct answer or direct heart for it, and having processes that probably didn't help the person immediately. All those things had to happen, almost in a sense, for you to develop that heart. And so looking back on it, it's like, I know for me, maybe this is selfishly, I'm kind of like, man, I wish it could have happened a little bit easier. But it's out of that burden that you have this breakthrough and you have this calling, you have these things happen too. I think that's kind of cool.
Absolutely. And I think there are a couple of things that kind of line up with that. I think the first thing is the difference between reacting and responding appropriately.
Yeah, that's good.
In absence of processes and procedures, right? Or in absence of a system that's already there, or people that are already doing it. Choosing how we either react or respond is tremendous. So that's something that I'm constantly trying to practice. Yeah. And then the other thing is something that I've heard you guys say a million times. I think Rev says it, like, show me who you have around you and I'll show you your future.
Yeah.
Right? Because if I would have had the wrong people around me in that moment, I so easily could have gone the opposite direction and been out there doing some more research. Right. I'm just saying. Like, if you can't beat them, join them. I don't know.
Killing me. Hey, so I wanted to ask you a question to contrast that experience, the first one, with something that I witnessed last Sunday that you did. Right? Yeah. Can you contrast those two experiences without using names or whatever? But
right.
Can you say how that one went?
Yeah, man. So here we are.
That is cool too. It's like a fast forward.
It is.
Oh, man.
It shows a difference. Yeah.
Man, it's so good. Here we are about 14 or 15 months into Ezer. And, I was down in the children's ministry collecting donations and getting things situated for the Thanksgiving blessing drive that we just got to be a part of. And my phone rings, and it's Tim. And he's like, "Listen, are you here?" I'm like, "Yeah, bro, I'm down in the children's ministry." And he's like, "Cool, I'm on my way." So he comes down there and he introduced me to an amazing young couple. I had actually had the honor of already knowing some of her story and been kind of working with her to do some advocacy and, just seeking out some options for her and working with her on that. And so she had her boyfriend with her. And for whatever reason, that past weekend, the Lord had stirred it in his heart to come up for prayer. I don't know if he had been up for prayer before, but I know that he went that day. Right. And he had an opportunity to pray with one of the pastors. And, we've we've made such a tremendous shift, right? Because now we're able to see like, okay, if I don't have this experience or I don't know about this, man, let me check the room right quick. Who do I know?
Right.
Tim, come here for a second. Let me introduce you to, right? Because maybe if I can't share my experience, strength, and hope because I haven't been there, I know someone who can.
Right.
So Tim jumps in and he has this conversation, and what we ended up learning is that this young man had been sleeping in his truck for what was it, like months or something, right? A year.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. But he's coming to service.
Yeah.
Like we don't know.
Yeah.
And he had a job.
Yeah, and he's working.
He's working.
Wow.
So he high capacity guy. He's just down on his luck.
Yeah. And so, you know, you can imagine how debilitating a situation like that could be.
Yeah, man.
It's very easy to get caught up in the world when you're looking at that sort of opposition.
Yeah.
So from a I guess an organizational perspective, it was really cool to be able to be a part of that experience, be a part of that exchange. And to not just point people to a program, but to point them to a person, right? To really say that we as a church actually have something that we can actually meet practical needs. And so one of the things I want to circle back, and I want you to spend a little more time here too. I am, like Kyle was saying, I am really glad that you went through the process that you went through. I know it sucks, right?
Man.
But I am really excited that you went through the process that you went through because had you not gone through that process, here is a vital ministry. Here's a vital service. Here's something that, I can preach from the stage, but what you do is something I can't do on a daily basis. And so it's vital that we go through our process in order to experience that promise, right?
You know
So you talk a little bit more.
Yeah.
Honestly, I can't do it either. That's the thing.
Right.
I can't, but he can. And he can when I let him.
Yeah, that's it.
Right? And that's had to be my entire posture. Not being salty about all of the things that were going on, but being salt.
Yeah. Come
Right?
on. Hello.
There's a tremendous difference.
Preaching to 2020, is that?
Hello.
Okay.
Don't be salty, but be salt. I'm writing that down right now. I got to preach in 2 weeks. I'm using that. I'm going to quote you too.
So
That's good.
Yeah, I think that that's something I struggle with actually, and I think some of you guys might already know this. I have been. One of the things I learned through all this is how valuable it is to be transparent.
Come on.
And we'll talk some more later on about just some of the struggles and the places that I had to work through in my personal life to get to that place.
Right,
but being transparent and being willing to say, I don't know it all. I'm struggling with this. I don't know what this looks like. Really makes a tremendous difference.
Yeah.
So
Keisha, really quick, Ezer. And I want to hear, like, you mentioned it a few times.
I know. People are like, what is this thing?
What is
helping people?
Ezer?
What are you doing?
But before we get there,
Okay.
we're going to hit a quick break, and then I want you to come back and tell us, what is Ezer? Who are the people that you're serving? What are you guys doing? What is the service? From the point that you were almost a year ago to now, what's going on? Like, what is God doing? I really want to hear that when we come
Perfect.
back.
Before we go to break, just really quickly, because I don't want to leave anybody hanging.
Finish your thought.
Oh boy is not sleeping in his truck today. We were able to take him that day and put him
That's
into
the
a
power of
place.
that story.
So
And-
Hey, I've been in programs and around that stuff all my life.
Yeah.
To have somebody raise their hand
Right.
and put their head on a pillow that night
Yep.
is amazing, and it certainly isn't wait till Wednesday to get to the food pantry.
Yeah.
And that's a contrast that I wanted to highlight.
It's going to be good.
All right. What's up, y'all? It's James. I hope that you are enjoying the podcast so far. Really quick, this podcast has been sponsored by Freedom Life Church. If you're looking for a church, if you need a place to go, if you are in the peninsula at all, if you're in San Antonio, Texas, you can find our church. All you have to do is go to flconline.org and you can find out more information about our church. You can even watch the service online. We have an online campus. People will be praying for you there. People will connect with you there. If you're looking for more information to stay up to date with everything Freedom Life Church, just go to our app, or you can also text FLC News to 97,000. I hope that you guys are enjoying this podcast. Let's jump back. All right, we are back talking to Keisha St. Clair.
Yep.
So Keisha, before we went on break, you were telling us about Ezer. You kept mentioning it, referencing it, and saying, man, Ezer does this, Ezer does that. I think that there is a great deal of people listening that would love to know, what is Ezer? Where did the name come from? What is it? What do you guys do? All of that.
Yeah.
All right, so let's jump right in, I guess.
Yeah.
All right, so Ezer is actually the word the Lord gave me. We talked about some of the things that stirred this whole thing up for me, and what I realized is that people needed help. People needed help, not just to meet tangible needs, but they needed an advocate. They needed someone that would go to war for them. They needed somebody that would cover them in prayer, somebody that would do life with them. And immediately the Lord gave me the word Ezer. I didn't even know what it meant.
Right.
I'm like, Google, Siri, can you tell me what the word Ezer means?
right.
And what I realized is that Ezer was first used in Scripture when the Lord created Eve to be a helpmate for Adam.
Gotcha.
That's where the word Ezer came from. And so we can just look at, all of the things in Scripture that that Eve did, not like the whole blowing it, forcing him to bite an apple thing, but all the other things, right?
Everything before that.
So that was the first part of when Ezer jumped in Scripture. And then later on, Scripture begins to reference the Holy Spirit as an Ezer for mankind, the one that intercedes, the one that goes to war for us, the one that we can lean on for guidance and discernment.
Now, for people that are illiterate like me, to look that up, could you spell Ezer? Because when you kept saying it, I kept, like when we were just talking on the phone about it.
Yeah.
And Ezer, I was spelling it wrong, and I never found anything that.
I watched Tim try to spell it. I think
Yeah.
the first time it was I-Z-A-R.
Yeah, for real.
He was working.
8th grade education. So,
Ezer.
So how do you spell that?
Yeah, it's Ezer.
Yeah.
Ezer.
Thank you.
You would always, I probably would say Ezer. Yeah, the first
Yeah. And I don't correct people. Like some people say Ebenezer. I don't know. They come up with all kinds of stuff.
Now you just,
Like, I don't-
you just disrespectful is what you are.
As long as they know how to write out the check.
There you go. There you go.
Hello.
We'll get to that.
He's just like, hey, if you want to help. That's good.
Really, we will jump into how people can get involved, though.
Yeah,
So that's where the word Ezer came from.
Nice.
And then just the word initiative, just being willing to do something, like having the spirit to jump out there. And so marrying those two together, coming up with the Ezer initiative, it was really just the Holy Spirit named the organization. So I tell people all the time that we're a spirit-led ministry, so we'll probably never have like an official worldly SOP, like standard operating procedure, because constantly he jumps in. Like if we had to have an approval process, we would not have been able to jump in and place that man
That's
that
what I was
day.
just going to ask. How could you have an SOP for the situations you're coming
Right.
from? Like, this is
the
what you do
greater.
when a guy calls you at 2 a.m.
There you
and he's
go.
getting out of jail. And how do you deal with that?
I mean, we tried that at one point. They were like, okay, if you're going to spend more than this amount of money, text everybody, and if two of us respond, then it's a go. And then okay, they're not responding.
No, then
4 o'clock in the
Not
morning. What?
responding.
Yeah.
Man, I'm doing it.
Yeah.
And then we had to have the conversation like, listen, I am overly intentional about being a good steward of the resources and the blessings that we get to steward for God's people. So,
So what do you guys do? Like,
Yeah,
what
what's
is
the-
yeah,
what is it?
yeah, awesome. So our mission is to bridge the gap between needed resources and people in need. And the whole vision behind it is to demonstrate the love, promise, and provision of Christ by aiding and empowering people to have future personal independence and future sustainability. And so some of the ways that we do that are the emergency services that we talked about, the after-hours stuff, the weekend stuff, jumping in and meeting tangible needs. And then from there, we have 3 different housing programs. So we do transitional housing. That's for people trying to get back on their feet. Sometimes people come in that are underemployed, or even some people unemployed, or people that are waiting on their benefits to be approved if they qualify for like Social Security, disability, things like that. We have a certain number of spots that we allot for full subsidies, which means we cover the complete cost of their living for a certain amount of time while they work towards the goals that we help them set for themselves and tear down any of the barriers that are preventing them from getting from point A to point B. So transitional housing, theoretically would be about a 9-month process where we just come alongside them, do life. We have had the opportunity for some amazing partnerships with some employers where we can get people connected with jobs. we are super excited about some of the things God's showing us for 2020, where we might even be able to do a better job at those things. But for now, we are just so grateful that we get that opportunity. We have, right now, we have 11 houses, 5 in Hampton and 6 in Newport News. So we house everyone. We have people that have just aged out of foster care, all the way up to 82 years old with dementia.
How would one qualify to be part of explaining some of the process, because there a lot of it I just don't understand. What are the houses like? What do you? How do you get into it?
First of all, how do you even get 11 houses? Because some people can't get one house. You know,
Oh my
like
gosh.
We all got questions.
11.
I want to know how many beds is in
Right,
11
what's
houses.
going on?
Like that's a lot. I mean, I'm thinking about hearing this, and people like most time when I hear podcasts like this, and you hear people talk about stuff like this, it's like, oh wow, like look at all the stuff you're doing, great, and then you think in the back of your head, I can never do that.
I can never.
Like, how am I gonna get 11 houses and
my
do all this
gosh.
stuff? So like, answer all that stuff right now.
Yeah, exactly.
Answer everything.
Just to double back real quick, outside of transitional housing, we have ongoing supportive housing, which is for people that get disability income or they have limited income from maybe veterans benefits. Most people don't know that if you have not worked 40 quarters in your lifetime and you have any sort of debilitating condition, the maximum amount you will get in Social Security benefits is $771 a month.
Wow. Wow.
Crickets, right?
Yeah.
Who can live on $771 a month?
Wow.
That's just unbelievable,
Wow.
right? So what we've had the opportunity to do is partner with some amazing owners that have found out what we do.
Okay.
It started out where we were placing people in like what you would call a rooming house.
Right.
And so the first few people we placed in a rooming house, and then we realized quickly that just meeting immediate needs and then placing them somewhere and leaving them on their own was not what God wanted us to do.
Right.
So we had a conversation with the owner of the first house. And he's like, man, I didn't realize these guys, had all these additional needs. I thought they were just gonna be renting a room, like,
Right.
And he's like, have you ever thought about just renting the house from me and doing what you need to do? And I'm like, what? No,
Yeah.
that wasn't part of the plan.
Right.
I got to go back to my prayer closet, And so very quickly, we went from taking these relationships with these owners where they are renting us the houses at a reduced rate so that we can essentially line up with HUD guidelines. So all the people that get disability income, the HUD guidelines for housing assistance is 30% of your income. So you pay 30% of your income. If that is the $771, it equates to about $350 a month out of the $771. And then you're still responsible for your own utilities and all of the other things that you need. So we didn't even realize that we were lining up with HUD guidelines because it's, for someone in that situation, we initiate all of the wraparound services. So food stamps, Medicaid, Medicare, personal care aids, mental health support services, all the things that they might need to help them, live in the fullness of where they're at. And then they pay $500, and that covers everything except their food, which they have the food stamps for. And we also have relationships with food pantries. So we take groceries into the homes the third and fourth week of each month to supplement what the food stamps are able to cover for those people.
Wow.
You did something too, and
That's awesome.
There's something that, again, we're in this Thanksgiving time frame, and I know a little bit about the behind the scenes that over the last couple of days you've been hustling and working to do like Ezer does a few things. So tell me, what was it that you just did? Like, what was the thing that you just provided, like just recently did?
Okay, cool. So one of the things that we've noticed in our partnership with pantries is that oftentimes we have a heart to help, but there's a difference between helping and being a blessing. I don't know if that makes sense to you guys, but so one of the things that I notice is that I would see people getting things from a food pantry or, holiday giveaways and stuff that they can't really use. I mean, why are you going to give somebody black beans on Thanksgiving? Isn't that like a New Year's thing or something?
I like
don't know.
black beans now. Black beans are nice. I'm just. Come on, dude.
But I see what you're saying though, like, you just gotta
Right.
can
Black
them
guy for
something.
black.
Yeah, that's good.
Right.
Yeah.
We have beans on New Year's.
Right. Right.
It's like black eyed peas and something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I've never had like beans on Thanksgiving. I'm just saying. I was thinking of an example. Jeez.
Right. No,
put me on Front
that's
Street.
good though. Yeah.
But yeah, just giving someone something because it's better than giving them nothing. Right.
That's the point. Yeah.
And so for us, we were like, man, there are people that, like me personally, my son, he went through some kidney issues that were really significant, and praise God, the Lord healed him, and he's been in remission for a few years now. But we had to get away from canned foods in my house because we had to be really conscious of the sodium because of my son. Yep. So we don't eat canned food. So if I needed to get food and they gave me a bunch of canned food, it's not blessing me at all because I can't use it. Right? And so we just really wanted to be intentional about having options for people. So we were able to have families sign up to be sponsored for Thanksgiving blessings. And so we were able to partner with Freedom Life Church, and people jumped in and they went to the store and they shopped for families. They sent money in for us to be able to go shop for families. We have an amazing partnership with Menonwood Retirement Community, who's also a nonprofit in Denby, who said, man, listen, we're going to donate 100 turkeys to you guys. And this was before we even started talking about Thanksgiving blessings. He just was like, hey, Keisha, could you use 100 turkeys at Thanksgiving? I'm like, oh my gosh, we're about to feed 100 families. How are we going to do this?
Right.
And that's what the Lord does. Literally, I always know when we're on the horizon of the next thing because provision comes first.
Yeah, that's good.
That's
a great point.
Seriously. There are certain things in my life where I have to wait on the Lord and he shows up right in time. Right. But for me, like yesterday, we went to pick up the turkeys and there was all this furniture for 2 rooms. So I'm like, oh gosh, we're about to get another house. Right. And it always happens that way. Right. Just honestly.
Yeah. That's good because when you're walking in the will of God and then he starts supplying those things. In the back of my head, probably because of movies I've been watching, I almost think of that movie Evan Almighty, where he keeps, I don't know if you've seen it, where he keeps providing the wood. And he's like, when do we do this? He's keeps giving him the things like build an ark. So the idea of God just gives you these resources and it's like, oh, I know what you want us to do. And we're just kind of going for it because you have that posture and that heart. And that's, to me, that's kind of like one of the secret ingredients of why Ezer continues just to grow and thrive and help so many people is because you're just being obedient to what God places in your hand. Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah, so we were able to jump in and feed 350 people. That breaks down to 100 families, so 100 turkeys were given away. We were also able to collect a substantial amount of canned goods that we are blessing Thrive with because they're an amazing organization that's providing food pantry items and financial counseling and all these other things for some of the same people that we get to partner with. And then we were also able to provide all of the stuff for the Four Oaks Homeless Day Center in Newport News to put together a Thanksgiving dinner to feed the homeless on Saturday.
So you intended initially just to feed 100 families.
Yeah.
She didn't even plan it.
You didn't even plan it.
I didn't even plan it.
But initially, there was this dream, this vision, Lord, I want to be obedient. Then there was 100 families. Somebody said, I'm going to give you, 100 turkeys. From that, you fed 350 people initially. Then you were able to give some resources to someone else. Then give it to another example. And you mentioned to her early, it's like, this is literally Jesus multiplying.
She told me today, loaves and fishes, when I asked her how it went.
Like last night, after majority of the people came through, we're all like, it looks like nobody's been here. What happened? I'm like, you know what? We actually, I didn't even mention that. We jumped on with another partnership that we have with the Heart of Giving, and they have a huge following. And we just said, hey, if you know anybody that can get here in the next 30 minutes, tell them to come be blessed. Yeah. And people just started showing up.
That's awesome.
You know what I mean?
That's awesome. Heck yeah, man.
So good.
I love that. Yeah.
So some of your secret sauce, almost, Kyle was mentioning it, is that you've got the right posture, but beyond even your right posture, you're meeting a practical need. Yeah. So there's some, and I almost want to speak to that just a little bit. What is it? Because you're reaching a very specific demographic, right? You're reaching some people who are marginalized and ostracized in our society. Why? Why are you doing all of this? Yeah. What is it? And I know you're going to say it. I know you're going to say, well, because he told me to.
Yeah.
But unpack that for the folks who are not as spiritual as you, because I'm just like,
I am not.
I don't even know.
Saved and street. Hashtag that.
I like that.
What'd you say?
Saved and street. Hashtag that.
Tim's like, yeah, I like that. That's it.
Really?
I know.
Honestly, that's where our Ezer scripture comes from. 1 John 4:19. We love because he first loved us. Really, for me, it's all about being the change that I want to see. Jumping in and knowing that it was only the grace of God and his mercy and his reckless love that saved me.
Right.
And knowing that perhaps if there would have been someone to come alongside me, maybe I would have made that choice a little sooner. Maybe I would have avoided some things.
Right.
And I'm grateful that I didn't, because my past became my platform to be able to relate to people. And them not stereotype. Like, we're a ministry.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And people are scared when they hear that word. One of the questions we ask them in the assessment is, do you identify as Christian, Catholic, Jewish, Muslim, other? And they're just like...
Why is that significant?
I think for us, we just want to know what posture to take with people,
That's
right?
good.
Freedom Life has been integral in just my theological development. So we are so invitation, not obligation. We are never going to smack somebody in the head with a Bible and shoo them into a house and require them to attend Bible study and come to church. Are you guys amazing? Do we get to use a shuttle and bring people that give their yes because they want to? Absolutely. Awesome. But are we going to require that? Absolutely not.
Yeah. So let me ask this question then. This is more of the carnal question that most of us probably won't ask because they're like, oh, I would never say this. But I think this goes for a lot of people. So you now have this burden. You want to be the change you want to see. My assumption is once you took on this whole project, your whole life shifted.
Oh my gosh.
Everything changed. Talk to people about how that is, because when that's maybe a hang up for some people. For others, it's like, well, you adapt and overcome. But for some, it's like, I want to do this, but I don't know how I'm going to fit this in my schedule. I don't know how I'm going to do this. Like, give us your mindset, your mind frame on some of that stuff.
It's crazy because it sounds so churchy. I honestly think that it just goes back to what you guys said earlier about your heart and your posture. I had to realize very quickly that I needed to be okay with not knowing what it looked like.
That's good.
And I had to be willing to lay it all on the line. Relationships, titles, you name it.
Yeah.
Because when you are operating in God's will and not your own, it's scary. It's scary.
Wow.
Each day, I don't know what we're going to encounter. I don't know how we're going to do it. But what I do know is that I have a God that goes before me.
That's good.
He orchestrates every detail.
Nasty stuff.
You know what I mean?
Stuff.
Like, if
Nasty.
I stay at the feet of Jesus,
Right.
I don't have to figure it out.
Right.
Honestly, like, the hair on my arms is standing up because I can't take credit for any of this. The only thing I can take credit for is my yes.
Can I jump in and get back to the hashtag street part? so here I'm gonna say, and let's let this. You said it sounded churchy.
Good,
No, you said it sounded churchy, but why aren't you helping dogfight rings? Because you don't have any experience in it.
Right? Yeah, I don't.
Right?
Have any
Why aren't you
experience
helping
in that.
stockbrokers who lost all their money because you had no experience in
That's
it? Right?
right.
So to James's point a little bit, where he's getting back where he said he was being sarcastic, the same thing is you're helping where you had that research, and that's why you have a heart for it, because you know what it feels like, and you have an education in this on how to get out. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
when people at home that were talking about sitting at home and wondering how do I start, or what do I start, or how can I help Keisha, if you don't have a heart for homeless, drug addicts, brokenness, these marginalized people, which I absolutely, that's what those are my people, right? So I have a heart for it. And that's why when James found dude, brought him over to me because he knew that I would get him to you because, and he knew that. But if you're at home wondering, should I do this or what do you have? What do you have an education in, for one?
Yeah.
And what do you have a heart for? And what are you passionate about?
Exactly.
And that's how you can get, and I'm just trying to stay down.
I
So,
think you're
so you
right.
said your church answer, but it's because you had the research.
That's it.
I mean,
Literally.
for reals. You know how it feels to
Yeah.
be the guy who didn't eat since
Right.
Thursday.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You know how it feels when your throat's closing up because you're thirsty.
Yeah.
You know how it feels not to be able to make ends meet.
Yeah.
So then you're going out, you know, now I'm on my side. Let me climb back
And you know
down.
what, on the other side of that,
Go ahead.
it helps us, I know how it feels to be in those places, but I also know how to recognize certain things that we're not always willing to say up front.
Right.
Because I wore those same faces. I used those same words. I
Game recognizes
demonstrated that.
game. She
There you
knows the
go.
hustle. She
Look,
knows the hustle.
Hey.
Right.
She knows the hustle. I'm just down on my luck. I just need a few dollars.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, and so I really believe that the spirit of discernment that we're blessed with is also directly related to the life
Absolutely.
experiences that we've had.
Hey, let me tell you, fellas, I watched her, the way that she maneuvered that situation we were talking about and the questions that were asked. I was like, dang, Keisha's good. Because she's asking questions that solicit, the answers that she needed. Are you cool with this? Are you cool with that? Had that not happened and gone a different way, then she could have recognized that this is a hustler. This is a game. There was a real need there, and she got to the point of it in like 20 seconds with like 3 questions.
And so I think that's important because you mentioned like we don't have standard operating procedures, but you guys do operate above board.
Yeah.
Like, so there's a sense that, and some of probably people listening, because I want to get to that too, of folks who want to partner with you, letting them know that I'm spirit led, but we do have some things in order, right?
Like, it may not look conventional,
Right.
Yeah, but we have things. It doesn't look like this or
yeah.
look like that. It's not the conventional standard, and we know that based on what you're saying, But that's true. Like, and what Tim was saying was so powerful is that there's a lot of the research we kept talking about that you've developed in, you've grown in, your testimony that has set you up to be able to do these things. And there's people like myself who I'm like, you have such a burden for that and a heart for that. And I love seeing that. Like, I may not have the same burden, but I do want to partner. I do want to find out ways to do it because I love what you're doing. Like when we did the Thanksgiving blessing, I was like, I want to partner with this. This is awesome. Like, let's provide for a family. Let's do it, And so I just think that's really cool too, how you have that. And so like to James's point, how do people partner with you? How do we get more involved in stuff like that?
Yeah. I'm going to circle back real quick because I forgot to mention one of the amazing programs that is actually one of our biggest hot buttons. We get more calls about this program. It's our Second Chance Housing Program. And so what we do is there are a lot of people that are not able to obtain their own residence because they have prior evictions, poor credit, outstanding utilities.
Right.
They can't come up with deposit money and be able to pay the rent for the first month. And if they don't meet certain criteria, there aren't a lot of agencies that can provide that funding for them. Yeah. And so what we do is we carry the lease and the utilities in Ezer's name for 1 year. And we come up with a plan. What are your barriers? How do we begin to address them? Pay off those utilities, work on your credit, reestablish rental history just by being involved with us.
Right.
In the Second Chance program, people don't get the subsidized cost of living that we provide in the other 2 programs.
Oh, okay.
Second Chance, people have to have enough income to pay dollar for dollar the cost of their living, while having us come alongside them to develop good budgeting, being able to save money, address the things that are holding them back. And at the end of the year lease, they should be in a position where they've addressed all those things, and now they can go out and get their own place because they've torn the barriers down, and now they have a good rental reference from us. They also have the opportunity to take over the lease in their name at the end of that year. So if they decide they don't want to move because they love it there and their kids are in the school, then they have the opportunity to do that as well.
So your give is the lending your good name and getting the credit, or getting them in, right? They receive from that wraparound services as far as education on how to deal with finances, proper budgeting, and getting your credit back in order, right? That's what you.
That's awesome.
That's fantastic.
I love that.
I love it.
Yeah.
So
I love that
Keisha,
too.
how do we as we're thinking through kind of landing the plane a little bit and maybe even transitioning, how does one get involved in what you're doing? How do we partner with all? And so some of what we do is there is a direct need for this in the Peninsula, 757. It is cool. I just think as a pastor at a church, it's really cool to be able to say that, hey, we have somebody in our congregation that I can give you their phone number, and if you've got a need, it's going to be met.
Yeah.
So for some of the churches that are listening to, some of the pastors that are listening to, some of the folks that are like, man, we need that too. How do they get in touch with you? How do we partner?
Absolutely. So I do just want to clarify, when we meet people, we do an assessment. We figure out what their goals are, what their barriers are, what their circumstances are, what their background looks like, so that we know how to best position them. We want to set them up for success and not failure.
Right.
We wouldn't take that young man and place him in a situation that would be detrimental to the circumstances that he's currently in, right? So we're super prayerful and intentional about placements in a lot of ways. So honestly, here we go, the whole Freedom Life Church DNA, right? For us, partnering looks like serving, praying, and giving. There are a ton of ways that people can serve. We're in the process of actually developing our volunteer application so that people can jump in, kind of identify where their heart is, and we can, get them plugged in. In the interim, they can jump online. Our website is theezerinitiative.com.
Could you spell it again?
Absolutely. Yeah. It's the THE Ezer EZER Initiative INITIA TIVE.
Come on, man.
.com.
I know.
You can also, if you jump on the website, it'll tell you a little bit about who we are, what we do, the services that we provide, some of the future goals that we have, the vision that the Lord's given us that we're trusting Him with in His timing. And then you can also contact us. So if you want to get involved.
Whoa. And most importantly, there's a little link on there
that says give now.
that says give now.
Tim's like, hey, you better make sure.
No, we need to make some money.
Street, baby, that's what we do.
Yeah, no, you need to make some money on it, and it's not making money. It's
not.
supporting. It's
So this is
supporting
the
all
thing.
this program, and I think that what Keisha has a heart for all this other stuff, but you guys need to kick in. Everybody needs to kick in. If it's on your heart right now, the best way you can help immediately today.
That's a good point, yeah.
As you're listening, go on the website, kick $5 or $10 or whatever you got,
Absolutely.
and help out that way. Then there's these other things like contact me, and I'll go ahead,
Exactly.
Keisha. Sorry,
So I'll make sure you got this. See?
I'm
this is
her
about
financial
what I said
Jiminy
before.
Cricket.
The people that you got around you.
I was
You know what I
actually going to
mean?
call you that today. All right, anyway.
It's
good,
so
yeah.
true.
That's so
I
good.
tell you. Oh man.
That's good.
You guys bless me so much. So you can jump on there, check us out, check out what we do. If you would like to set up a time for us to come speak to, your life group or your leadership team or your congregation or, any group of people that you have that you guys are sharing a heart and a burden and a calling for the least, the last, or the lost. There's a huge demographic. Nobody has to fit into a particular box. We have single mothers. We have people with cancer. We have people that are blind. We have people that have AIDS. We have people that are 19 years old, just aging out of foster care. There's always a way that you can jump in and serve and come alongside with someone. There's absolutely no way that you could not do life with somebody in this ministry. And that's the biggest way to get involved, is to jump in. It could be something as small as taking somebody to the grocery store, and it could be something as big as holding their hand when they are getting ready to go under to have their voice box removed. There's just a ton of ways to get involved. But none of this is possible without people that say yes, that are willing to partner with us financially. In order for us to take somebody off the street, if that guy would not have had a job, would I have had the opportunity to put him into a room where the lights were going to be able to stay on and there's going to be a phone for him to call around if he needed to make appointments, jump on the Wi-Fi to fill out job applications? What if his health insurance was cut off, but we can't let him come off his medicine because then he can't go to work? Right. There's so many different ways that financially partnering with us gives us the opportunity to really be the hands and feet of Jesus in someone's life.
Yeah.
We're just paying for gas. You told me one of the things that they do is, and again, convicts are near and dear to my heart too. So a guy has to go to court.
Yeah, we take
Right,
them to court.
they take them to court,
Yeah.
and make sure that they go in there and they handle their legal obligations
Right.
as well, and or check into the parole department or whatever it is out here, probation and parole department.
Yeah.
That's dope, but that takes money.
It does.
So Keisha, we've got the AsiaInitiative.com.
Yep, theezerinitiative.com.
And then how would people even find
weird.
you on any of Instagram, Facebook, any of that other stuff?
So we're on Facebook at the Ezer Initiative. Do I need to spell it again?
No,
we
no,
got
you
it.
probably got it.
We got it. We
and
got
then
it.
and then we have a phone number. It's a group number, so there are tons of us that are available to answer calls. Oftentimes we are doing stuff like this. So my phone is on Do Not Disturb. If one of the other people on our team are able to jump and answer the phone while I'm here, they'll do that. If they are in an assessment or something like that, people can leave us a voicemail. We'll call them back. They can shoot us a text. That's one of the awesome things is that we're able to text back and forth. So that's a great way. So you can do all of the above. The number to reach us would be 757-317-0200.
Yeah. Hey, and so we want to make sure somehow we're going to get some technology to make sure that that's available when we post this episode, that you'll be able to see where it is, what to do. We are going to close out this episode, but we've got Keisha coming back for our next episode to really dive into more of her story, to unpack some of it for us, because I think there's more that we didn't even get to scratch the surface, really. So I want to dive into that. But hey, if you guys are watching this or listening to this, if you could do us a favor, first of all, give to the Ezer Initiative, partner with the Ezer Initiative, but also if you could leave a rating or a comment, and however you're watching this, just saying, hey, I enjoyed it. Maybe if you didn't like it, you can save that comment, but I think that might help us too. But just leave a comment, give us some good feedback. Good feedback doesn't mean it sounds good or it has to feel good, but good feedback is good feedback. So give us some feedback, and we'd love to catch up with you guys next time.
Well, let's put our money where our mouth is. All right, so I'm gonna start off. I will volunteer right now. I'll pledge that I'll give you $300 today for the Ezer Initiative. I wonder if these cats would be willing to kick in something as well. I'm gonna put you on the spot.
Yeah, I'll sit down and chat with the family and sit down and let's do it.
Let me talk with my wife. And
let's do it.
I'll be to that point. We have a fundraiser. You have a fundraiser tonight at my pizza. That I'll be at.
It's at 5 o'clock, right?
That's at 5 o'clock.
Well, it's actually all day from 10:30 a.m. to 9 p.m. You can go in and say, hey, I'm here for the fundraiser, and 20% of your meal purchase, so you get to eat and not cook the day before Thanksgiving, and you get to partner with us.
And this won't be. This will already be.
This will already be passed, but this is probably.
But this is something that's going to be ongoing because we signed up for multiple.
Right.
Well, you get one a quarter.
That's so good. Yeah, and just real quick, Pastor James.
They're not going to let me end this episode, by the way.
Exactly.
I'm just saying, they're just
Can't do it.
trying, but
Go ahead.
I think the thing that I just wanted to kind of close with is that this has been a lot of information, a little bit of time, and we kind of started talking about, some of the struggles that I had to walk through to be able to even realize the heart that I had and what God was asking me to do. And then, some of the ways that we were able to facilitate some of the stuff that we have, partnerships with owners, partnerships with other agencies and organizations. But I think the biggest thing is just not letting fear keep you from doing what God is asking you to do.
Amen.
Being intentional about leaning in and having people in your life that will speak life to you, that will believe in you, that will hold your arms up when you can't, that will encourage you to get on your face with Jesus and just listen. People that will tell you to not listen to what the world is saying, but to really tap into where God is leading you.
So let's pick back up there on the next episode.
There we go.
All right?
Cool.
All right. Like, share, subscribe. Make sure you rate, leave a comment. We'll see you guys next time.